I would say the biggest revelation is it's the first sport that's come along where a 71-year-old grandma can whip the out of her 23-year-old grandson.
That's how I got started.
Yeah, bro. But that is like a profound. I'm going to say this slow again because I'm probably going to clip it for people that aren't paying attention. A 71-year-old grandma can whip the physical ass off her 23-year-old grandson in a physical sport.
It just means her grandson probably sucks, but it's true.
But honestly, ish. I think everyone at
because the argument against that always is like, that's not a real sport if a grandma can beat a kid, but like that's not true.
Correct. It's first of all, golf, then you should eliminate golf.
Correct.
Let's just eliminate golf out of sports if that's your argument. And two, to your point, it means that the grandma has been playing her ass off in her retirement home. Grandson comes to visit during college, has never played but has hacked around with tennis and ping pong and gets his ass beat.
Yeah, now he's got the bug.
Everyone's had their ass beat by a Harvey.
If you have a competitive bone in your body and your grandma beats you in something, you will have the bug.
Well, Gary, you got a lot of your prized possessions here. You got a Carmelo Anthony, a Pele jersey. Where's the signed fives paddle?
Very good question.
That's probably my fault. I probably didn't give it to him yet, honestly.
Yeah,
that's probably my fault.
Good news. I was like, I don't recall getting that. So thank you for the accountability.
There we go.
My answer was going to actually be, I'd probably flipped it on eBay.
Hey, if you can get a good grand out of that, good for you. There's space right there. That's perfect.
One day, brother. One day. I think obviously we're recording this in the pre-dawn of the New York event, and it's just so incredible to watch the sport continue to build. And to your point, today compared to 24 months ago, you could actually sell that signed paddle. 24 months ago, you could not. And hopefully in 5 or 10 years, you could actually really, really sell it. And I think that's the journey of things becoming more popular. I always say to people when they ask me about pickleball, I'm like, Super Bowl I did not sell out its stadium. The 1982 NBA Finals had a game with the Sixers and Lakers, 82, that was played during the day, that CBS chose to air golf, and they aired the NBA game on tape delay. So, these UFC, I don't know, everyone's young enough to probably remember, banned in most states, and it was a very, very narrow sport. And so, one day I expect to sell that paddle for $5,000.
There we go. Love it.
The pressure's on you on that one.
Yeah.
We got to make it worth something.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just start with what's the backstory of investing in Major League Pickleball and then eventually coming into ownership of the fives?
Sure. So I had known Amir Delic from my tennis days, and Amir called us up and wanted marketing help for Major League Pickleball. And we didn't know what Major League Pickleball was at the time. And he said in passing that they were going to sell teams as well. And I look at Gary, and he's always wanted to own the Jets. I've always wanted to own the Knicks, and we're like, why not start with pickleball? And we're doing probably the least amount of due diligence in the history of any deal. Gary says, let's fucking do it. So it was epic. We did it literally like this, and I think we were super fortunate because a week later, LeBron buys his team, and then Brady buys his team, and Gary was kind of the first to be like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And we also, we knew Steve there's actually video of Ryan and I playing pickleball with Roddick and Agassi 4 or 5 years earlier at South by.
We get a nice dive.
Thank you very much. The
highlight there.
By the way, I have the full raw footage. It was fairly, I was pretty happy with Ryan is obviously a renowned, iconic collegiate player, and obviously the other two are real guys that played on tour at the highest of levels. And I definitely I definitely have to put that full footage together because contextually it's probably going to end up being because none of the three of them had actually really played that much pickleball at that point. Yeah. And obviously there's a transition when you go from tennis. And ironically, racket sports are kind of the thing I'm somewhat decent at. All ping pong, And like
Basketball, don't sell yourself short.
I hack in basketball, but like racket sports come
You're a
back.
hustle guy.
I'm a hustle guy, and like I'm crafty, and like I have hand-eye coordination. But out of everything, racket sports always did come natural to me. Like tennis and ping pong and racquetball. Like the first time I ever played them, I was in the mix pretty quickly of like, okay, this is not something I'm atrocious at. Whereas like skiing and skateboarding, surfing, I still don't understand what that's
Those
all
are tough.
about.
I mean, you just named 3 very difficult sports. Yeah.
But those are things that don't come as natural. And so, yeah, I think I've got to put that footage out in its entirety because it's the most athletic content.
100%. We're gonna need that.
Yeah.
We'll play the guess your duper game.
I don't know if we want to play that. Out of respect, we'll just we'll pass.
Well, like you said, you guys have been in for about 2 years at this point, and at the time, what these teams were, first round we're going for like $100 grand,
Yep.
second round 500, and then now we have valuations as high as $12 million.
Yes.
This has got to be one of the quickest 10x, 20x, 30x of investments that you've had, but it's on paper.
Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth. Ish. You know, I've been in tech investing for a long time now, and you know, there's been many things that I've owned where it was remarkable on paper, and then it's, you know, out of business, right? Like I just saw a headline. I don't even know. You know, we now have to like wonder if anything you see is real anymore with AI and you know, dark web, like you know, videos. But deepfakes. Excuse me. I saw something this morning that was like Cameo is like in deep shit and like, you know, running out of money, and I'm like, and they were, or you see like Peloton CEO lost like 99% of his, you know, value because of the COVID stuff. So yes, it's been a great investment. What I like about it is I truly think whether it goes, it's at 12 right now, 16, 18, you hear people raising some money, you know, full sale 12, 18, 20 if you want investors.
Right.
If it goes to 7 in like a year, because let's say whatever doesn't go right, it's still going to feel better to me that, I mean, there's been companies I've invested in at a $4 million valuation, and 9 months later, it raises at a $400 million valuation. Right. But then those companies almost often go to zero and don't have a liquidity event. I think for me, what's been great about this is I feel very confident, especially post-merger. You know, that was similar to like the history of like basketball or the NFL. Like there's been a lot of USFL or World Football League. There's been basketball leagues, obviously ABA and the AFL merged into the leaders and became the leagues we know in football and basketball. And so, you know, I think for me, the whole time we were in LOP, I was incredibly aware that there was another league that was run by somebody I respected as a businessman and thought he had skills. And so post-merger, there's just a remarkable confidence that we have a real league. And I think things like this podcast, the merch you guys are wearing, the social media content that I think continues to over-index, which gives me confidence that people like it visually, the way it shows on MSG or Tennis Channel or ESPN, and the ratings that come along with it, the headlines, I'll tell you a good one. I haven't said this to you. I often, when I start descending on a flight, I basically work every second I'm on a flight or rest. It's like full extremity. I won't like watch TV, I'll just think, or I'll just like bang on email. But when we go into descent, I really, really, really like looking down at the world and just like looking at how like neighborhoods were built, like where's there, like silly stuff like, oh, there's traffic on 95. And something hit me in the last 6 months, the amount of pickleball courts that, and not only that, actually, now I even forgot this. I was flying back Labor Day. Yeah, I was flying back this Labor Day a couple weeks ago, and I was flying, and I flew over, I was in the Jersey, New York area, and there was a ton of parks we were flying over, and I saw pickleball courts and tennis courts.
Yep.
And I'm a huge tennis advocate fan, and I'm a believer of and. I think pickleballs and paddle is good for racquetball, is good for ping pong, is good for tennis. It's all just good. I think people get confused about things. They think in or, not and. But I got to tell you, I'd be lying if I didn't say how much I was smiling on how every pickleball court was packed. And I think if you look at basketball, and this is like an important comp, because people will say things like, oh, just because a lot of people are playing it, what does that mean? I'm like, it means a lot. One of the reasons I think basketball grew in the last 30 years, 40 years, there's a lot of reasons. But it it's hard to play a game of baseball. Like, it's very hard. Like, you need to get like minimally 6 kids to like get a decent something weird wiffle ball thing going, right? Like 2-on-2 basketball is easy. Football, like you can do 2-on-2 football, but like, you know, as you get older, it gets kind of like boring fast. Like, I think the fact that people play basketball leads to people watching basketball. And I think the fact of the matter is, I think all these people that are, especially a very desirable demo, 50, 60, 70 high net worth individuals, I think it bodes extremely well. And just I would say the biggest revelation is it's the first sport that's come along where a 71-year-old grandma can whip the fuck out of her 23-year-old grandson.
That's how I got started.
Yeah, bro. But that is like a profound, I'm gonna say this slow again because I'm probably gonna clip it for people that aren't paying attention. A 71-year-old grandma can whip the physical ass off her 23-year-old grandson in a physical sport.
It just means her grandson probably sucks, but it's true.
But honestly, ish. I think everyone at this table is educated enough. Yes, and that 23-year-old after playing, the scenario obviously is the grandma's been playing a bunch.
Right, correct.
The grandson.
The argument against that always is like, that's not a real sport if a grandma can beat a kid, but like that's not true.
Correct. It's you know, first of all, golf, then you should eliminate golf.
Correct.
Let's just eliminate golf out of sports if that's your argument. And
Right.
2, to your point, it means that the grandma has been playing her ass off in her retirement home. Grandson comes to visit during college, has never played but has hacked around with tennis and ping pong and gets his ass beat.
Yeah, now he's got the bug.
Now he's got the
Everyone's had
When
their
you
ass
miss-
kicked by a
if
Harvey.
you have a competitive bone in your body and your grandma beats you in something,
Right.
you will have the fucking bug.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. That guy was Harvey for me at the Racine Cesar Chavez Center with my dad.
still remember his name.
I still remember his name because I've never met somebody my age named Harvey.
Right.
That's like 3 generations older than me.
I'm so pumped for Harvey. Like if he knows that you're playing in the league right now, he's like, yo, I whipped that kid.
For sure. Harvey, Lyle, and Al. I do keep in touch with Al.
That's awesome.
Those are 3 names that are like damn near extinct at this point for my generation. But
Well, that's because every fucking parent wants their name like Cupcake and like Saturn and fucking Pencil. All parents have just completely lost their way. They literally like are desperate to come up with a name that nobody else like. When we're now almost done with like words we know, like I'm like waiting for like, here's my kid Shmabukakasa.
well, you got
Like, you
Elon
know,
Musk naming his
yeah,
kids
like
some crazy
649
stuff.
X syntax, like so. That's why good names like Harvey and Al are becoming extinct because modern parenting is fucked.
They'll come full circle. They'll get there eventually.
Don is coming back.
Well, how do you take this from on paper to an actual like cash flow business eventually?
sponsorships, ticket sales. I mean, the big elephant in the room is the media rights deal, right?
That's the answer to the quiz.
Yeah,
Right.
Like
And
that
that-
changes everything.
That's the only thing. I mean, ticket sales and sponsorship is
merch.
is a fine
pivotal,
business.
yeah.
But like the NFL, like when the reason NBA players you never heard of are making $100 million a year on 3-year deals to sit as the 11th man on a bench is because the TV deals have become enormous because of the popularity of basketball, and they only have 15 players to distribute it. You're going to end up being like a bitter old man. You know that, right? Because you're going to be like, there are like legends of the NBA who played in the 70s.
Like Julius Erving. Like
Yeah, I mean, like Dr. J sits around and he's like, this fucking dipshit that can't play basketball on the fucking Hawks, the 11th man, made more money in the first 8 games of his season this year than I made in my career. So, I think that's where the money comes from. And by the way, that's the reason I actually invested. Ryan's right. Like it was intuitive. It felt right. I knew Ryan was going to have a lot of passion to be the driving force of the team from a GM standpoint and a minority owner. But what I saw post the investment, which then got me to like really lean in and not let it be just passive, was the clips on social did too well. Mm-hmm. I just could tell that it was exciting. And the MLP pitch, and you know this, was we were going to be a little bit more casual than the tour. And there was an element of like what I think is happening in sports, right? Like my beloved New York Jets, when Mark Gastineau in the early 80s would celebrate a sack, he was lambasted. He was he would like now. There's not a single play that happens in the NFL without somebody doing.
That's part
like,
of practice.
Yeah, like
you
that's
work on
right.
a routine.
Even
And
baseball is breaking out of that trend. You've
they
got guys
have to.
bat flipping. You guys got everything.
They have to.
And also, Gary is obsessed with people that express him. Like he's been a Djokovic fan forever because he likes when people are raw emotion. And what's fascinating, I love going in the comments when you see, especially the women in our league.
Yeah.
Come on! They yell more
Anna
than
Leigh
men
gets
do.
blasted.
Yeah, but all of them do. Anna Bright, Rachel, Anna Leigh, they yell. I love it. He loves it, but it's hilarious to go in the comments and them being like, "That's rude." Like,
Yeah,
what?
For
Well,
sure.
those are tennis fans. Poor Alcaraz fucking smashes his racket in Cincinnati, and fucking like everybody couldn't wait to just take a shit on him.
Right.
It's unbelievable how sad it is to live a life to wait for someone who excels in something to slip up. Like I see it in parenting, back to something I'm passionate about. Like some people have remarkable parents. They make like one maybe a solid mistake, not an atrocious or iconic mistake. They make a solid mistake and the kid fucking dwells on it forever. I'm like, do you understand that your fucking dad is epic? Like I understand you don't like that he did this thing, but why are we talking about this for the last 4 months? And that's how I saw that Alcaraz thing. Like I get that Federer never fucking whatever, but honestly, and you know this, back to like just doing racket nerd talk, I think Federer did a lot of passive aggressive shit in his words, in his comments. Like, and I that was always my stance on him. I'm like, he's appeasing the fucking Wimbledon crowd, but he's being very clever in how, like he actually acts. And so, like to me, I think that I thought that dynamic of trash talk, I think the league should ban Harwood. He's completely. I think he's completely out of control on the
He's a
sidelines.
fifth player on our team, 100%.
100%. It's really crazy. He actually makes fun of me because, as you see at the games, I'm very weird. I'm the same way with the Jets. When I care, I get very quiet. Ironically, I'm very quiet at the games.
I've seen some pretty interesting clips of you getting a little too far on the story.
Especially after the
After like I get like I especially am. The other thing I've noticed is the other team gets like. Here's the thing. This is why I love Joker. Joker wants the entire center court to hate him. And like I understand that, me too, and that's what gets me off, and I can like dominate. So I'm actually always scared of me getting too excited because I'm concerned about the other guy. Game 7 at the Garden against the Pacers, a friend of mine heckled Halliburton early on, and it triggered him, and he went off, and the game was over.
Right.
We lost Game 7. Halliburton went bananas.
Most pickleball players don't respond that way. I'll say that.
I don't know.
You can
I
do
think
the
they do.
I think there's a handful
There's
that
a
do, but
handful,
not all.
A couple.
that are
Riley.
real athletes and mentally tough, and he's right. The rest are like.
Well, by the way, that I of course I know that. Like the only reason I have decent pickup basketball skills is I just mentally destroy people that I think are soft and like pick on it until they like lose confidence, even though they have 30 times more skill than anybody on the court. And I see that in pick. What's amazing about racket sports? It really is amazing. Obviously, there's shooting and there's a lot throwing a pass. You could be off a pitch. I get it, but like there is. The thing that I love about racket sports, the thing I love about pickleball is momentum. Like, there's nothing like watching someone like battle through. Actually, in Atlanta, I saw this a little bit in you, and so I'll use you as an example. Watching like anything, like the game is like you're just battling through, and then you make one big shot, and then like the next 30 fucking shots just flow.
Yeah.
Or the reverse, right? One shot throws you off, and then you're just off the tracks, and so
That's why we won the season title in the Dream Breaker.
Do you think that we should get rid of timeouts in pickleball and make managing a momentum an actual more of a skill? Like obviously you've got timeouts in the NBA, but like wouldn't it be interesting to see how somebody can claw their way out of a downward slide of 5 or 6 points?
In a complete counter to what I just said, my answer is actually no, because I actually think anytime you can bring more dynamics into a sport, and you add more thinking,
More strategy.
Correct. It gets more interesting for like it's been funny to watch my fiance go from like 2 years ago, like football's the worst and it's my biggest passion, to watching Sunday Night Football the other day, where this actually happened the other day, where it clicked, and
She likes it now. Or
she was like, huh. because football's a funny sport. Like this is why people that immigrate to America don't tend to like it at first. It's slow, especially if you love soccer. But the second you get it, then everything becomes interesting. And I think a timeout makes it interesting.
Okay, that's one of the biggest criticisms is these dink rallies, not made for TV. Yep. And then you just brought up a point. There's a ton of NFL plays where it was just like, first of all, there's a ton of downtime between actual plays, and it plays like 15 seconds if it's long, right? I look at like Premier League soccer, and it is so boring for 98% of the game.
Don't go far away. I was devastated as a fan when tennis became baseline. John McEnroe and Stefan Edberg were my fucking life. Like the most interesting stuff for me was net play. Like by far.
Yeah.
Like it's why I watch tennis. Literally, when they started getting further and further away because they would smash, like his game, serve and forehand and fucking destroy. It kind of like I remember when I remember vividly when I'm like when Sampras broke through at the Open as a kid. I was already so sports knowledgeable. I'm like, huh. And then it fucking just went off like from there. And so tennis is boring when they're just forehands slamming for certain people. There's not a single sport like really, genuinely.
It doesn't have its boring
By the way,
moments.
do you know how many people don't like the NBA product? Right. It's exploded. Do you know how many people despise it and only watch college basketball? Because it's all fucking 3-point land math, analytics, like guys literally going up for a layup by himself and kicking it out to a guy to shoot a three. And people are like, what the fuck? So like, I mean, UFC, everyone's crying now because all the wrestlers are starting to dominate. Like literally had 4 conversations in the last week off this, O'Malley losing his title and over Leon losing his title. The wrestlers, you got the Russians, all those characters. And literally this week, multiple very educated like sports strategists talking about like UFC might have a problem because people are bored to watch. Meanwhile, I think it's the fucking best. Like controlling somebody.
I love the dinks more than anything.
Right.
Because I
Once
think it's
you
the
understand.
most skilled part, right? A lot of people have fast hands. It's also very hard to do, especially at the level that MLP's at. But like dinking, you need that's an art.
Yeah,
it's a fucking art.
There's
It's
an
hard.
understanding. You have to have that sort of competence at playing to actually understand what's going on before you can appreciate what a dink is and how actually difficult it is to hit this ball so soft.
I mean, yeah, this is a forever thing with sports. Like the people that most nerd out about it, then those people, then we become obsessed with this part, and in 7 years, somebody's gonna come along and change the sport. Yeah. In 7 years, there's a kid right now at 9 years old who is destined to change our sport because she or he is going to do something that right now we don't fully know.
Yep.
Well, it's kind of happening as we speak a little bit. What Anna Leigh, Hayden, Gabe, these like aggressive, right? They didn't like it when those guys started being super aggressive.
Oh yeah,
at
she
first.
got a lot of crap for being what they call like a banger, the Harveys of the world, like wanting all soft play, epic
Because
stuff.
Harvey's 100.
He might be now. Can I ask you one last quick question? I know you got to go.
I'll jump out and you take over.
You went from whatever it was, 470 to like 680 on Anna Leigh Waters, right? Somebody goes to 690 after you do that. What are you willing to spend to get Anna Leigh on your team?
We were going to go more. We were pretty pot committed. Obviously, we had her last year. We also think that she's obviously one of the faces of the sport. We feel like we're important owners in the league. There was, for me personally, forget about like her remarkable play. I don't have to explain to you who she is as a player. I thought it was actually important for us to have a player like her for the league, to be frank. And so, I'm very affected by Joe Namath, what he meant to the history of American football. If he went to the Cardinals in St. Louis, who drafted him in the NFL, instead of going to the AFL team, the Jets, there would have never been the Sports Illustrated cover of Broadway Joe. It just would have been different, right? And so thought it was important that we had her. Obviously, you probably saw the clip. Like, I used my fantasy baseball trick.
Yep.
That was the best, right? He was so.
I love that clip.
Brother, we're sitting here together with you because that move worked. I don't think we have the money left to get obviously.
You were stuck with Walmart, Zane?
But it's
No, he's saying that if we slow played it, he thinks it would have gone higher and we wouldn't have had the money to get you.
That's right.
Saying.
That's exactly what I'm
All right,
saying.
I'll take it as a compliment.
It was a compliment. I think we also, to our scouting and to like, how Ryan prepped for the draft. Like obviously, that we nailed it with you, but I don't think we would have the money. And I think some of the teams that paid, that extra $100K that I think we saved by going to such a big number that it made everybody pause for a second, and then it gave us it's literally after 25 years of fantasy baseball, watching how human behavior works, knowing that if you want someone, if you're lucky enough for that player to be thrown out about 7 or 8 or 10 or 6. So you could see the cadence has been set that everyone's like nickel and dime. Mm-hmm. When you throw that extra dollar, like that big jump caught everybody just long enough because they had to calibrate. Right. Time's up. We have her. Oh shit. Players that are not even close to that are going for the same range over the next 12 picks. It was a huge moment. I think is foundational.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get
take
her.
full credit for us.
You get her, and then just to give Zane some credit. Okay, there's arguments to be made. This is the MLP GOAT right here.
4 or 5.
So to get Anna Leigh and then to get him on the crew,
four.
I think is
by the
pretty
way,
good outcome.
When we got the most exciting part to us is when we got Zane. The next several picks went above the money. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So he was the best bargain 100%. At the spot in the whole draft.
I want to look at that footage because I think we also. I don't remember, so I don't want to make it up. But Zane, you like this. I don't want to make this up, but we filmed everything, so we got to go look at it. I think we kind of knew something there too. Do you remember we were kind of like, I remember, this is what I just remember when you said that. I remember saying the next ones are going to go for more. There was something we knew on that. Do you remember?
Yes, because there was a point in time where we knew that like you and Hayden were kind of like the next two, and when we looked at everyone else after that, it was very apparent that people were going to start panicking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That they weren't getting someone that was going to be able to kind of like be a force on their team or a captain on their team or something that was going to be like meaningful. Mm-hmm. So like we knew people were going to be like, oh shit. And a lot of them
they were all less attractive too.
For sure. I remember they started going out like 230, 250 afterwards.
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly.
Huge. All right, I got to go to this finance meeting.
Hey, thank you.
Keep the podcast
Appreciate
going.
it.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
coming on.
Thanks for coming on.
I'll see you in a bit.
Also, you keep your office very clean. At least this part. I was very impressed.
They just cleaned it up.
Okay, so Proton pulled a fast one on me. They invited us and a bunch of other creators out to their headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. I played with the Proton that day. That was maybe like 2 months ago, and I have not stopped playing with it since. So I've obviously tried a ton of paddles. The Proton, to me, it's just different. They say a lot about the durability, the fact that like Andre Deescu was using it for like 3 months in a row, which is unheard of, especially for pros who are changing their paddles like every day. But you just don't have to replace these things. The longevity, the grit, the structure of the paddle, it just holds up. They have crazy pop, insane control. So Proton seems to be one of those brands that came out of nowhere in the past year, and now they're one of the most popular paddles, selling out constantly. I just mentioned that Andre Deescu plays with them, but Caitlin Christian, Donald Young, Travis Rettenmeyer, CJ Klinger, the list goes on. All these pros are dominating the courts with paddles that leverage carbon fiber technology from baseball bats for exceptional sound and spin. Following the quick sellout of their Series 1, Proton's Series 2 paddles are now on the scene, claimed to be the softest on the market, providing top-notch control and great feel, winning a lot of medals at PPA events at the 3.0 and 4.0 level. Find Proton paddles exclusively through Pickleball Central. Use our code, THEDINK, to save $25 on your Proton paddle from pickleballcentral.com. That's all caps, THEDINK, for $25 off. All right. So you, how often are you back, like in this office and everything?
So for context, Thomas is talking about I recently moved to Miami.
Yep. Good. You're a better host than I am.
I come back probably about a week a month. Before I moved, I was probably in the office like 2 times a week. So it's not like I was here every single day anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much in the office probably the same amount than when I lived in New York.
Yeah.
Because I'm here every day when I'm in town. So.
All right, so I had one question as we were talking there, just thinking about like brand building, right? I think a lot of what we were talking about had to do with how do you build the brand of pickleball, the brand of the individuals. When you think about the merger,
Yes.
and now we have a PPA brand,
Yes.
and we have a Major League Pickleball brand, and we're simultaneously trying to build 2 brands into premium spectator sports.
Yes.
Does that create more of a challenge? I assume the answer is yes, but how do you tackle that problem?
I think you need to tackle it by making distinct seasons, right? So that they're right. I think it's more confusing because you go from a PPA tournament to an MLP tournament,
Sure.
PPA, MLP, and you're like, wait a second, what's going
Right.
on here? I don't think the formats are confusing. Humans will pick.
They'll
that up.
figure it out.
Yeah, but I do think we need to say, okay, like same way there's an NBA season and an NFL season. Let's make the MLP season. Let's bang it out. And then around that, you'll have the PPA season. And that, I think, will solve a bunch of that brand building confusion between the 2 leagues.
Yeah, I mean, if people can figure out NFL rules and scoring, like we can figure out pickleball. It's not that hard comparatively.
Yeah, but building one spectator sport, one brand in a spectator sport is challenging enough. To now build 2, I wonder if there's some sort of consolidation that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when.
From a brand
5,
perspective,
10,
obviously they already
20 years.
merged.
I do think at some point, maybe there needs to be a choice made of whether this is a team format or a tour format type of sport. Which are the fans watching more of? Which are they gravitating more towards? Which is going to garner the bigger media rights deal? Maybe there has to kind of like be like all in on one of the formats. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. I think that everyone loves both formats for different reasons. But down the road, if a media rights company says, I don't want this, but I want this, and I'm willing to pay for just this, but I want more content on this.
Yeah, you got to listen to. Well, I mean, for the time being, it's relatively easy to parallel path them, right?
Correct.
And you can share, all the fixed costs and stuff from the same entity. But
Yep.
as a MLP owner, it sounds like you're excited about the way that the format is going to be next year. So it's, from what we understand, it's going to be a 5-month MLP season with a couple of PPAs thrown in between. And then outside of that would be pretty much all PPA. So do you like the idea of having like it's MLP season?
Yeah. So I that hasn't been confirmed yet, so I don't know if it's fact.
It's alleged. It's
Right.
alleged.
Heard rumors.
It's
It's
the rumors.
swirling, but like, yes, I do. Do I like it for personal reasons? No, because like now my life is devoted for 5 months to like something that's overwhelming when I've liked kind of being able to spread out and bob and weave. But for fans and the sport itself and money reasons, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense to do it that way. I also think that MLP is never going to reach its full potential until we have the players in the cities and locations. At the end of the day, team sports are epic because people fall in love with the team, right? I'm a diehard Knicks fan. I rep the front of the jersey, not the back. I love Jalen Brunson, but if Jalen Brunson right now went to the Mavs, I don't love Jalen Brunson anymore. I will buy every piece of Knicks merch in the world. I will buy any ticket that you ask me to buy there. I am obsessed with the brand of the Knicks. So I don't think that we reach our full potential as a team format league until we have home court stadiums, all the players. And like, imagine if you 4 lived in New Jersey or New York and like we did so many things with fans and blah, blah, blah. Like they fall in love with you and they fall in love with the team. I'm not saying that should happen right now. There's not a justification for asking everybody to move to a city yet. But down the road, I don't think it reaches its full potential until that probably happens.
Yeah, right.
For sure, where you can have those interactions with fans and whatnot. Like building that goes such a long way. Like, and I think that's what you guys are trying to do with the fives. Like we have an awesome event at Lifetime tonight.
Yep.
Just getting engaged with like the local community, and pickleball also still is, we haven't yet figured out how to make a pickleball point look as good on a screen as it does in person.
Yeah.
When you come see this in person, people are wowed. They will say, like, I've seen this on TV, I've seen this on YouTube plenty of times. It's not the same. You hear the ball whiz past you. You can see the spin better. I think you're lowered to the court, so you can actually see the pace of play and just how difficult those dinks are. It, for whatever reason, in person, this game is so much better.
With the new V Pros, like the way they whiz by, I feel like if you could figure out how to capture that sound, you know, if you look at tennis, they're capturing all sorts of sound you don't even realize until you look for it.
Yeah.
Like, how do you amplify those? And that can help tell the story of, like, how fast is that ball?
Yeah.
How hard are these people hitting it? Right?
I think the biggest thing that's missing from that is you don't feel the energy. I mean, pickleball, to me, is the difference in tennis is like that energy at the location. When we played, I watched it back for a little bit because I was curious. When we played the Shock on the grandstand court, wherever we played in Salt Lake City, that was definitely one of the loudest matches in the history of MLP.
You couldn't even see it on the stream.
Couldn't hear a thing.
Yeah.
You didn't hear one fan yell. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was all drowned out.
Well, because I wasn't there, and I remember people saying that afterward, and I was like, didn't seem like that.
Didn't seem that exciting.
Yeah.
But in person, like, it was drowned out. Everything was drowned out. Every single point. Someone was talking shit. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I actually went back to that Ranchers match where we played in the Dream Breaker. I got up 20-18 against Christian. He called a timeout, and I talked smack to him for a good, like, 25 seconds straight while just standing on
And
the
you couldn't
court.
see it,
I was
right?
just yelling. I was just yelling at him. I was like, I have no idea what I said in that moment. I want to go back and watch and see what I actually said.
They gotta pick that
And
stuff up.
You couldn't hear a word. You couldn't hear a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. So they got to fix that for sure. I mean, production value will continue to get better. I think it already has. From a year ago, the production value is way better than what I remember I came into the league. I was like, oh my God, this is bad. And it's gotten better and will continue to get better.
Yeah, I think we should get mic'd up. We actually did that for the very first Major League Pickleball. Like, that would have to be, we'd have to be very careful. Like, tennis players know that they're mic'd up. They know that there's fines, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we all swear like sailors out there currently.
Yeah.
We would clean our shit up a little bit.
Yeah. Some of you would.
Some of
you
us
can't
would.
help it.
Yeah.
I think I could figure it out.
Yeah. I don't think it would be that big of an issue. I mean, when you're out there playing with passion, people understand. As long as you're not slurring up a storm, you know, you don't step over the line. I think it's
for
fine.
sure.
What about like building the personal brand of players? I think Zane is one of the players who's done a great job of, like, he's multi-channel, right? He's got a ton of different things going on. There are some players who, there's a certain player right now who's up and coming who won't do any content or podcast unless their manager is the one dictating this, unless they get paid. And I'm like, well, don't you want to, like, build your brand as your
They don't have a
potentially
social
a
media
rising
channel
star?
themselves?
They do, but it's like they won't go, like, they won't come on a show. They won't do clips. They won't do, like, man on the street unless there's some sort of compensation. Like, maybe wait to do that down the road. Right now, you should be thinking about brand building. But how do you think about the individual players building their personal brands to, get better sponsorship dollars?
Totally.
Or, I assume for you guys, even in drafting, personal brand was at least part
100%.
of the decision making.
100%. We had a matrix, and that we gave a score for multiple different categories, and marketability was one of the main categories. 100%. I think it's immensely important. I think that I have a huge passion for injecting a little bit of WWE into MLP and PPA, like storylines. Humans connect to stories, to narratives. They started doing it this tournament. Actually, we had a great call with Mac and his team recently, talking about how, like, leading up to every single MLP and probably PPA too, we need to tell deep storylines before each matchup, and I'm hopeful that it's going to come out, like, before our match with both the Hustlers and with DC. They're working on video clips that are going to, like, tell some deeper storylines, because that's how fans get connected to. They don't know what's going on otherwise. So I think personally, regardless of the team stuff, there's stories, but humans need to tell their stories. I also think that there's too much content out there that's the same right now for Pickle. My advice to pickleball players, if they're trying to build a brand, is don't create. You should document.
Yeah.
Like, film your day and let the editor find the special moments that are going to build your personality. There's too many like tips and tricks, right? This is how you dink. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. Or just highlight reels of practice. Like there's better ways to show who you are as a personality and human. And that only comes if you're not like firmly trying to like create a piece of content, instead just document and let the special moments come.
Yeah, I think like the highlights, the instructional, these like quick hit pieces of content that translate to maybe like a spike in views, but not a consistency of people tuning in to see what you're up to.
Or loyalty, right? The people who follow along with you, they're like, you're only as good as your last piece of content. But if people sort of, I almost think of this as like video game streamers on YouTube from a while ago, right? There were some who were just only there because they were good at the game, and then as soon as they're not good at the game anymore, nobody watches them. But there are some who are pretty good at the game, great personalities, and they've been able to adapt and have huge audiences going forward. Yeah. Like if you think about Ninja from Fortnite, he sucks at Fortnite now, right? Like a lot better than I am and have ever been, right? But he's still got a huge audience just because people liked his personality.
Yeah, but you see that he actually has like created it's more like under the table beef with some of these like new streamers like the Kai Cenat, who's the Speed, right? Like these guys are the biggest streamers in the world now. And what are they doing? They're just going to cities and walking around and doing random stuff. Yeah. And people are tuning into that. I think there's a big shift toward that. So I agree with you.
Off
like the
court
documenting
stuff, hobbies, who you are.
Right.
I think it's important for them to like become a real fan of the players.
Let's bleep all this out because I'm doing my very first vlog this week.
There we go.
So.
There we go.
Right. Well, I mean, everybody, like Christian Alshon actually does a really good job with this. I think he like does all sorts of content on his YouTube. He'd get in his car after a match and just like rant.
Yeah,
it's like,
I agree.
That's interesting stuff.
I agree. I haven't watched enough of it, but I remember when I first met him, he was telling me how he was doing that, and I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I think he needs to probably put more of that stuff. I think he does it on YouTube. More of the candid stuff. Yeah. Like, why not clip that and put it on like his Instagram? I haven't seen that much stuff like that though. Yeah. But I would like show that raw stuff behind the scenes.
But you've seen him hitting shirtless against the wall?
For sure. For sure.
Watch that every morning.
Christian is my absolute favorite person to troll on Twitter, and it's so easy.
And he loves trolling people. So he trolls and he gets trolled.
Yep.
His rise has been awesome to watch though. Because I like watching people that he came in and a lot of people were doubters and like they were like, no, he's not gonna be. He doesn't have the mental. Like he's too aggressive. He's too Tennessee and stuff like that. So I like that he kind of grinded it out and put the work in to get good at pickle, not just be like a specimen of an athlete.
Yeah. For sure. Well, and he's authentic too. That's what people resonate with, right? Yeah. Like I feel like a few years ago, the influencer was like, try to make my life look as good as possible. And everybody's starting to see through that. Now people just want real shit.
Yeah.
Right. He keeps it real. Like,
totally.
And I think the people who keep it real, like a Nick Kyrgios, right? You either love him or you hate him, but he fucking keeps it real. Right. And I think people have a real desire for that now.
Yeah. I think that's why people are some people are massive fans of him and just want to see him back out.
Yeah. Polarizing.
Playing. Yeah. I do think like going back to, what we were talking about earlier, when people show their personality on the court and then the comments are like, this is disrespectful. I think because the pickleball community is so small that the powers that be, the players themselves, are too reactive to that small sample size of, which will seem relatively like a big sample size of opinions in their comments.
Yeah.
The negativity is always going to be louder than the positivity, right? And so trying not to be too reactive to that, I think Christian's a good example. If you've ever watched him on like a non-championship court match, there's a lot more fire and personality there. And then when he gets on championship court, he kind of like dials it in.
Yeah. Well, I tell Anna Leigh this all the time. I'm like, listen, she's 17 years old, right? That stuff affects you, especially when she's a poster child and, is supposed to be this perfect girl. Like, I'm like, no, like you got to be who you are. Obviously, be nice to everyone, but like you're one of the fiercest competitors that I've ever met. Embrace that. It's your best quality you've got. Like embrace it. Don't hide from it. It's okay. And do not let the trolls in the comments bother you when they're like, you behaved atrociously. You pumped your fist. You yelled in an opponent's face. after they yelled in your face, you did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
You gotta embrace that type of your personality.
Right. All right. So looking around the pickleball landscape, do you think there's any business opportunities, things that people aren't doing, areas of growth that you see as like, hey, maybe there's some upside there, things that people are overlooking that you could lean into to create value, whether that's on business or media or, whatever else?
I mean, there's been such an influx of like everyone trying to get a piece of the pie in pickle, right? Whether it's
crazy.
I remember 2 years ago, like I got one phone call being like, I think I'm going to open up the Top Golf of pickleball.
Oh, now it's constant.
Now I get like 7 a day. People being like, "Do you and Gary want to invest in it? We're gonna own the Midwest. We're gonna own the New York. We're gonna own like." It's like, oh my god, and paddle companies and like it's just like so. Upside, are there places that have not been tapped yet? I don't have a great answer for that. It's not coming to mind right now. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the media rights deal for the leagues at least. But on the personal side of things, no, people do meet and greets. They do clinics a lot right now. They're sponsorship deals. I need to give that one more thought. I'm not sure. We'll cut that entire segment out.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to not have an answer. It was a kind of a challenging question. I want to see,
Yeah, I haven't seen a white space quite yet.
What are kind of like the remaining factors, do you think? I mean, we talked about a good amount of them, but to take pickleball a little bit more mainstream, I think the sort of tired narrative is recreational side, absolutely skyrocketing. The percentage of recreational players who convert to spectators is smaller than we'd like it to be. How do we bump that percentage up, and how do we make pickleball more mainstream overall?
Yeah, I think it's more of the same in the sense that you got to remove friction to watch it. Right now, you go from YouTube to Pickleball TV.
It's confusing for me. It's my job to cover it.
I know.
I don't know
It's
where
wild.
this match right now.
CBS Sports, YouTube, the next match is on this one. That's crazy. And the only way that gets fixed is if we get one consolidated media rights deal. And then I hate golf. I hate playing it. I hate watching it. But I totally understand why so many people love it and watch it. But it's easy to watch. They turn on CBS or NBC or whatever, and it's right there for them on a Sunday. And they're like, I play golf. I love golf. Let me see what the best players in the world look like. We got to remove the friction to watch it, make it, and then it's going to go more mainstream. You're still going to have plenty of haters the same way that I hate golf. You're going to have a lot of people that are like, pickleball sucks. I argue with my friends all the time, especially now in Miami. They love paddle. They're betting on paddle. It's the best sport in the whole world. And I'm like, that's just because you guys suck at pickle. You don't know how to play it. So you can't appreciate it, so you don't understand it. And when you don't understand something, you don't think it's great. You don't think it's cool. But I think pickle, as a huge super fan of tennis, I think pickle's awesome. I love it. I think there's nuances to get really good at it that are so challenging. And I think the more people that are playing it, the more people appreciate it, remove the friction from watching it, more it goes mainstream.
Yeah.
I think people are kind of early on in the funnel too. Like people are still having just found pickleball. They're starting. They're maybe 3.0 level or below there, and then as they continue to get better, they hear about Major League Pickleball. They start to get better at pickleball, take lessons, whatever, become more and more invested, and then you turn around and you look and watch pickleball. I mean, not too many people. Maybe this is just a me thing, but like before I've participated in a sport or even understood it, I've had zero desire to actually watch it.
Yeah.
Really.
Right, exactly. It's also a telltale sign. Also, I have a lot of friends that are still on the tour or ATP, tennis, doubles, and they're like starting to call me up and be like, do you think I should make transition and go all in? I'm like, yeah, I do. You're not making a great living right now, grinding out the tour and the doubles right now, and you're fucking a great athlete and you're amazing. Like, yeah, you should take 6 months and go all in and see if you can get good at
For
pickle.
sure. Yeah, I've been taking more and more of those calls too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell them it kind of sucks. They should stay out. They should stay out.
Yeah. Do you think obviously with the tour wars, the compensation for players became pretty inflated, especially for some? You think that's going to come back down to earth? So like when you talk to your tennis buddies, and you're like, yeah, come on over, like you make all this money.
Yeah.
Is there something in the back of your mind? It's like, But yeah, in 2 years or whatever, when these initial contracts expire,
Will the money
is it
be
going
there?
to plateau
Yeah.
or kind of come back down to level?
That'll very much depend on the media rights deal too.
Yeah,
If the
right.
money's there, if the money comes from the media rights deal, then UPA is going to have the money to continue to pay the best players in the world and want to pay the best players in the world. You can also fundraise. There's lots of ways to get capital. So I think the money will be there. To your point, like not everything was inflated. There were definitely certain people that got very lucky, and congrats to them. And other ones I think are in the right place for what they should be paid for a pickleball career, for how much they're playing and stuff, and for what the league is trying to do. But yeah, I think the money will be there because I think when these contracts expire, most of them, in 2 years?
Most of them at the end of 2026, I believe.
Yeah. So by then, we don't have a media rights deal. That's a problem in itself. So I think by then we'll have one, and I think there'll be money there.
Yeah. From into it, and you let me know when you got to go.
Yeah.
But
At some point, we should give Gary his office back.
We'll wrap in 5.
from an individual franchise perspective, he asked about turning that into a real, cash flow business versus just right now it's essentially scarcity and kind of buzz that's driving those franchise values up.
Yeah.
Eventually turning that into a real business. I know media rights is important for the UPA as a whole. That doesn't necessarily then flow down to the individual franchises. So what are some of the things that you're thinking about running a franchise as far as okay, how do we actually go and monetize this thing?
So it will flow down to the franchises. It has to. Otherwise, there's no reason to own a team, candidly. So no, it will flow down to the franchises. That should be our number one revenue driver. Sponsorships should be number 2. And then tickets and merch will be 3 and 4. So the teams will be reliant on a media rights deal over time as well.
Yeah. So then the only one of those revenue streams that's maybe exclusive to the franchise that you just mentioned would be merch
And
then,
sponsorships.
Sponsorships of the franchise itself. That's probably the biggest one right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, and but by the way, every team manages their expenses differently. So some teams don't spend a lot, and they might be already profitable. Other teams want to invest in the team and the players and
Building up the franchise,
their reputation of being someone that makes this fun. Right? I don't want the players to come to New York and dread coming to New York. I want them to be excited to come and spend time with us and be excited for MLP tournaments and look forward to them instead of being ugh, I'm gonna stay in this dump and this type of thing and this type of thing. So it just depends on how you want to build your franchise.
Well, the chat wall is very nice.
There we
like
go.
that.
There we go.
They hooked us up with a pretty incredible spot for our trip here to New York.
Yeah,
Let us come in a couple days early.
I paid my own way. I ended up, I texted him about an hour before this.
Can I sleep? Can I sleep in your room?
I should have. The elevator in our hotel, I was on the 33rd floor, just completely shut down.
Oh, God.
I go to walk out of my room, and there's a pile of people in front. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm not, I've got 3 bags. How am I going to get down the stairs? But eventually made it anyway. So last question then.
Yeah.
You go to a brand, a potential sponsor, to sponsor the Fives.
Yes.
What's the pitch? What are you selling them? What are they sponsoring? What's the value they're going to get?
Totally. A couple different things. One is there are broadcast spots. So they're getting exposure, logo on jersey. So that's number one. It's most traditional sports thing you're selling. Number 2 is social media content. We have a decent but mighty social media following. We can also package things up with players. I can go to Zane and be like, hey, I want you to do this. I'll cut you in on the deal type of thing. And he'll then use his social media following. So it could be a combination of Fives plus player. We could sell events, meet and greets, clinics, pop-up events that are going to be fun. So it's a combination. I consider it a media rights deal, the same way that DINK sells media sponsorships. It's the same thing. We're just using slightly different assets.
Right.
But we're packaging things up in a way that's logo brought to you by content, media and distribution, and events. And you get creative with the packages. Cool. We're being pretty discerning around the sponsors. We've had a few offers.
We're getting
We're booted.
We're coming.
Get out of here.
Deal.
All right.
Love you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
ending in the Dink podcast history book.
That's the best ending. That's gonna be the best ending.